Ryan declared confidently. Starting tomorrow, we are going to live with our eldest son and his wife. Live together? I glared at Brian, filled with surprise and anger. Why wasn't I consulted about this? And do I need to consult with you? Nothing changes anyway. No matter what you say, we're living together. It doesn't matter when I tell you. Ryan seemed defiant. He probably believes that since it's already decided, I can't do anything to change the situation. Isn't that a bit selfish? Shouldn't you at least discuss it with me? If I had discussed this earlier, you would have surely opposed it, right? You never really liked Chris and his family. As we continued arguing, the eldest son and his wife arrived. They always looked down on me. The eldest son's wife, Olivia, smirked and said, "If you oppose me, I won't take care of you." I felt a shiver just thinking about being taken care of by her. Moreover, the eldest son and his wife continued with their incomprehensible remarks. "Mom, you have to feel lucky being able to meet with such a kind person as Dad. If it weren't for him, you might have still be single." I am single. What? The spacious living room went silent. My name is Mia Jones. I am a 58-year-old nurse. Though the job is tough, I find it fulfilling. People often ask me, isn't it hard to be a nurse at 58? But what's harder than my job is taking care of my retired husband, Brian. Brian is a typical old-fashioned man who never did household chores or took part in childcare. Furthermore, he believes it's natural for his wife to do household chores and never thanks me. Instead, he just complains and often uses foul language. "This is the meal. It's tasteless. Bring me salt and pepper now." He used to be a kinder person, and I once admired his stubbornness as a sign of his strength. But I've painfully realized how much he's changed. I believe he sees me as nothing more than his caretaker. What I regret the most is how we raised our eldest son, Chris. I wanted him to be confident and kind. I firmly scolded him for his mistakes and praised him for his good deeds, raising him with all the love I could offer. However, I learned that children are influenced by both their mother and father. "You're no good." Ryan had a habit of mocking Chris. While he might see it as a light joke, the effect on an innocent child can be immense. Please don't hurt the child's self-esteem. He might take your half-joking words seriously since he's still young. I always asked Brian to be careful about how he spoke to Chris. But Brian didn't heed my words. Instead, he would lash out at me even more. If he takes things so seriously, he won't survive in society. I'm trying to teach him about the harshness of the world. "You're too serious. I should have married a more fun-loving woman." Brian didn't hesitate to use bad language in front of Chris. Whenever I confronted him about it, he would end up saying, "Fine, then let's get divorced." Avoiding the issue had become a daily occurrence. Moreover, I found out that Brian was cheating. And there were several times we were really about to get divorced. Still, Chris admired Brian. If Chris loved Brian, his father, then we should respect his opinion. I thought that divorcing and separating would be wrong, so I endured day by day. Over time, I became accustomed to Brian's harsh words towards me. But looking back now, if we had parted ways back then, Chris might have grown up in a healthier environment and become a respectable person. Chris got married when he was 30. His partner, Olivia, was the same age as him, and they met through an acquaintance. "Nice to meet you. I hope to get along well with you." Olivia was sociable and innocent. She was very cute, and I liked her from the start. I'm glad that someone as beautiful and energetic as you is marrying Chris. At first, I felt we had a good relationship. Whenever she came to visit, she would offer with a smile, "Mother, I'll help. Just tell me what to do." However, things changed after about a year they got married. Olivia is such a good girl. She's cute and lively. Chris found a wonderful woman. When the eldest son and his wife came over for a sleepover and were drinking together, Brian, in high spirits, began to speak his mind. "Right? She's always smiling and amazing. Unlike Mom, she never nags, lets me be free, and never complains. This is the result of me not getting divorced." Chris continuously witnessed Brian treating me like a maid and looking down on me, and it influenced his mindset. He thought it was okay to belittle me. I should have divorced Brian. I regret the choices I made back then. I urged Chris to reconsider his attitude towards me, but he would never accept such advice, especially coming from someone he deemed inferior. By the time Chris became an adult, I had given up pointing it out. But I never imagined that this would make my life even more challenging. One day, I was preparing dinner, and next to me was Olivia in an apron. "Can you take this to the table?" "Yes." "Okay." Olivia's cheerfulness often comforted me. I was about to start preparing the next dish. Usually, after a while, Olivia would come back and ask, "What should I do next?" But today, no matter how long I waited, she didn't come back to the kitchen. What could have happened? I went to the living room where Brian and the others were eating, just as the next dish was ready. Olivia was there, relaxing with Brian and Chris with a glass in her hand. Relieved, I placed the dish on the table and sat down. That's when Olivia said something unexpected. "Mother, why are you sitting down? Don't you still have chores left?" "What do you mean?" I doubted my ears, but Olivia continued with a smile. "You still have to clear the dishes, right? Are you sure you should be sitting down?" Confused and struggling to respond, Brian and Chris, who had been watching, bursted out laughing. "Good job, Olivia." "Yeah, that's right." "Really? Yay." "Right, you were relying too much on Olivia, making her do her job. Household chores are Mom's jobs. Don't ask my precious wife to do them for you." It wasn't expected for things to turn out like this. Did Brian set this up, or did it happen because of Olivia's sociable nature? Ever since that day, even Olivia, who was supposed to be my strong ally, started mocking me. Whenever my eldest son and his wife came to visit or stay over, it naturally became my responsibility to handle all the household chores. They were treated as guests, and I would eat my food in the kitchen while cooking for them. This became the new norm in our household. Because being treated as guests were comfortable, their visits became even more frequent. Furthermore, they started asking us for more and more, be it money or dinner. They seemed to be taking advantage of us, and the burden on me kept increasing. Although I was already at my limit, the situation became unbearable. I decided I had no choice but to leave Brian in this house. One day, Brian suddenly said something astonishing to me. "I've decided to buy a new house." "What do you mean?" Seems like he had already finalized the deal. "But who will pay for it?" I used the savings and my retirement money for the down payment. For the rest, we will take out a mortgage. Guess what? It has 4 bedrooms. I was dumbfounded and once again resolved to divorce him. But Brian's next words took me by surprise. "You've taken care of us so much. You should live freely in the new house." "Why all of a sudden?" "Thanks to you handling things at home. Both Chris and I have been able to live freely. I'm grateful." The treatment I've endured can't be brushed off with just these words. I can't just forgive him. However, considering Brian's usual behavior, I understood how valuable his words were. Maybe his sincere gratitude elevated my mood a bit. Indeed, when I visited the finished house, I was amazed by its beauty and functionality. I've got all the appliances. I picked ones I thought you'd find easy to use. Surprisingly, all the appliances were state-of-the-art and user-friendly. Considering the hardships I've faced, this made me very happy. However, on moving day, I noticed a stack of cardboard boxes in the corner of a room. We hadn't moved yet, so why were these boxes here? Brian, what are these boxes? Pointing at the boxes, I asked. Brian answered with a proud and delighted smile. No, those are Chris. I brought them in yesterday. Why are Chris things here? As I asked repeatedly, Brian proudly responded. Chris and his family have been a great help with this whole thing. They even taught me how to persuade you. He continued, explaining that the idea to build a house started with Chris and his wife's insistence. And they anticipated my objection, so Olivia proposed this approach. I think it's best to keep buying a new house a secret. Once you buy it, just express gratitude to Mia. Also, let's equip it with the latest user-friendly appliances, and she'll surely be satisfied and happy. After all, she's the type who gets happy with a bit of appreciation, right? Everything was orchestrated by my son and his wife. I can't believe this. It made me angry that they were the ones that decided everything. But Brian announced, starting from tomorrow, we'll be living with them. Live together? I glared at Brian with anger and surprise. I was never consulted on this. Do I have to? It's clear that you'd oppose, but that changes nothing. Regardless of what you say, we are going to live together. If so, it doesn't matter when I tell you. Brian seemed defiant. He probably believes that since it's already decided, I can't do anything to change the situation. It's not that I dislike Chris and his family. I just want them to stop relying on their parents even after turning 30. Ryan doesn't manage our finances nor do housework. So can just enjoy being flattered by his eldest son and wife. I felt the burden all falls on me. I can't imagine how much money and time I have wasted. This may seem cold, but I am reluctant to continue serving my eldest son and his wife. This couple takes us for granted and never say a simple thank you. They still look down on me and treat me like a housemaid. Rather than living with such ungrateful in-laws, I had something in mind. That moment, Brian's phone rang. No, it's Chris. They seem to be close, so I'll go get them. You can start cleaning up. That's too selfish. You're always nagging. If you don't like it, let's divorce. Without waiting for my reply, he said his usual line and quickly left the house. It always comes to this. I muttered to myself as I quickly prepared to leave the new home. Shortly after I settled my errands and returned, Brian came back with the eldest son and his wife. Come on in. It's a wonderful house, right? He boasted with open arms. The son and his wife entered and expressed their amazement. Wow, it's so spacious. I love it. It's really wonderful. Oh, the bay window in this room is so cute. Did you like the bay window room, Olivia? All right, then that is your room. Really? Oh, thank you. All three were cheerful. I felt as if I didn't exist, but I had something to say. I have something to say. I began to speak to Brian, but at that moment, Olivia smirked provocatively. Sorry, Mother, we all got carried away. We came in without greeting you and just started celebrating." With her sarcastic smile and words, I responded with a forced smile. "It's fine, I don't mind. But I wasn't informed about this living arrangement, so I'm honestly surprised." Chris confidently stepped forward. "Don't you feel safer being with us? We are doing you a favor, being a good son. You should feel lucky to have such a wonderful son and daughter-in-law, like father, like son." His proud and unabashed manner was just like his father's earlier declaring cohabitation. "A favor. In that case, you won't need the financial support you've been taking from us anymore, right? You won't be paying rent if you live here." But Chris shook his head vigorously. No, that's a separate issue." "Oh, but you mentioned you're doing us a favor. Could it be that you think pushing your way into our new house is being a good son?" When I purposely said this like I was a genuine question, Chris' face turned bright red in an instant. "Just living with such a nagger like you is already being a good son. Olivia, if you ever have an issue with Mom, tell me right away." Olivia firmly nodded at Chris' words. "Don't worry, I think we can get along like we always do, right, Mother? Listen, living together means respecting each other's needs and living harmoniously. Can you two do that?" Olivia confidently replied, "No problem, okay? But you understand that I won't be the only one doing all the housework, right?" Although these were just basic rules for living together, Olivia looked surprised and inquired, "Wait a minute. Are you seriously expecting us to do the household chores? We both work, and you're a housewife. I also have a job. I leave home by 8 a.m. and often return after 5 p.m. I don't have night shifts or overtime often, but my regular working hours are almost the same as others. I think I even earn more than they do." When I explained this, Olivia laughed mockingly. "Even so, aren't you the housewife of this home? Household work is supposed to be done by housewives." "Oh, Olivia, I didn't think you would have such an old-fashioned way of thinking. Nowadays, young couples both work and share household duties, right?" Olivia's face turned sour. "We just believe in preserving good old customs. You're from the old era, so shouldn't you uphold old traditions?" "Oh, really? If you insist on that, then the primary person responsible for housework should be the incoming bride, which is you, Olivia. And remember, one of the most important old customs is to respect your elders." "You're not making sense." I finally voiced the counter-arguments I had been holding back. She looked stunned. Olivia seemed at a loss for words at my well-reasoned response and glared at me with resentment. "Just because you bought a new house doesn't mean you can say anything. Damn it." She was nearly yelling, her usual composed demeanor completely gone. She was becoming hysterical. Chris was desperately trying to calm her down, and Brian rushed over to try and pacify the couple. "Calm down, Mia. Don't bully Chris' precious wife." "Mom, watch your words." Apologize to Olivia. "I haven't done anything to apologize for. I merely stated facts. She was the one who treated me like I'm old, and now she's playing the victim." I stayed silent. Then Brian began to persuade me in a low voice. "Think about it. Sooner or later, we'll have to rely on Chris and Olivia. Before that happens, we should support them while we still can, as a sort of prepayment for future kindness." The eldest son and his wife nodded in agreement. Unfortunately, I think they are the type to repay kindness with malice. If, hypothetically, I needed care in the future, I would definitely not rely on these two. Nor would I want them to take care of me. Just the thought of being cared for by these two sends shivers down my spine. Seeing my reaction, Olivia seemed to have calmed down, and with a smirk, she blurted out, "If you go against me, don't expect to be taken care of." Oh, I never wanted you to take care of me in the first place. Even though I truly meant what I said, Olivia laughed out loud, saying, "Come on, you don't have to be so stubborn." That's so true. Mia has always been stubborn. I've always said she lacks charm. She's perfect when it comes to housework, but as a wife, she scores 0. A wife should be charming like Olivia. Oh, stop it. Praising me won't get you anything, Father. The atmosphere was friendly, that's fine. I really wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Turning to Brian, I prepared to say what I had failed to express earlier. I have something to say to you. Oh, a confession of love. Mom, you have to feel lucky being able to meet with such a kind person as Dad. If it weren't for him, you might have still be single. My patience was wearing thin. Multiple interruptions made it difficult for me to speak. And after enduring countless insensitive remarks, I finally snapped. In a loud voice, directed at Chris, I blurted out, "I'm single." Brian and the eldest son's couple, huh? What are you talking about? Tension filled the spacious living room. After a moment, Brian hesitantly asked, "What do you mean?" Let me say it again. "I'm single. And so are you." No, that can't be. I couldn't understand why Brian was acting so surprised. He looked at me, confused. "You always kept saying we should get divorced." Well, that was just a figure of speech, a form of communication between a married couple. He didn't seem to understand the situation, so I began explaining as simply as possible. "You always told me about wanting a divorce, so I granted your wish. Now, we are both back to being single. Legally, we are complete strangers. Do you understand? Doesn't explain anything. I never signed any divorce papers." "When did you submit them to the office?" Brian's face turned red, and his eyes were bloodshot. Such a consequence of his emotional and reckless behavior. It's pitiful he doesn't remember signing the divorce papers or the circumstances leading up to it. As far as my memory serves, you signed the divorce papers with your own hands. Huh? When was that? I never signed anything. We haven't had any major disputes recently, and we've been getting along, haven't we? The reason we haven't had disputes lately is because I gave up on my expectations of Brian. I stopped trying to find a middle ground to avoid confrontations. Sadly, Brian hasn't even noticed that. You signed it 20 years ago, when you cheated on me. Brian was silent for a while, a look of concentration on his face. 20 years ago, our marriage was on the rocks. We had heated arguments night after night. Back then, I was seriously considering leaving the house and choosing to get divorced. That incident was truly intense and unforgettable. Yet, Brian's expression remained vague. Don't you remember? No one remembers something from 20 years ago. Besides, it's irrelevant. What happened back then doesn't matter. Brian shouted, trembling with anger. I won't let it be invalidated. I know about it, not just what happened 20 years ago, but also your current affairs. That alone is reason enough for divorce. The once furious-looking Brian was now struck with shock and panic, his face turning pale. He then sank to his knees, defeated. Chris tried to smooth over the situation by flashing a reassuring smile and stepping in to mediate. Having an affair is of course wrong, but can't you forgive him? You must have just felt lonely, and Dad is not a man with many words. If you start communicating more, everything should be fine. Chris interjected, but his perspective was irrelevant. Lack of words. Me feeling lonely. Such matters might have been concerns when we first married, but they're irrelevant now. No, it just seemed like so much trouble. I started to get used to his bad behavior. Then there's no reason to divorce now. Why not give it another shot? The eldest son and his wife desperately tried to persuade me. Of course they would. If I were gone, their comfortable living arrangement would be compromised. No more having all chores done for them. No more being treated like honored guests. Regardless of their beautiful new home, having a stubborn and selfish father is hardly a plus. Probably a minus from the start. To make matters worse, they've even mentioned taking care of him when he can't move. It's like they're adding to their own problems. Come on, Mom. Think it over. We'll make Dad apologize. Chris tried to lift Brian up, but he seemed entirely disheartened, like a limp octopus. Dad, say something. Mom is leaving because of you. Yes, Father. The eldest son and his wife acted as if everything was only Brian's fault. I don't intend to defend Brian, but I felt their attitude was too self-centered, so I addressed them. You know, the final straw that led me to decide on divorce was the way you two behaved. What? Why is it our fault? Did you think I truly enjoyed serving you? Being used and looked down upon by you two, ridiculed and terribly treated. And on top of it all, your father suddenly decided to move in with you. I had no choice but to file for divorce. I submitted the divorce papers just before you two arrived. Brian reacted to those words, looking up at me with tears in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Did I have to? What's the use of saying it when nothing will change? Regardless of what I say, we were going to live together, right? You said it yourself? Brian seemed to recall his earlier words. I'll ask my lawyer to take care of things from here. The eldest son and his wife tried to stop me, but I firmly said, go find yourself another housemaid. As I left, I heard the son, his wife, and Brian arguing. Being so alike, I wonder where they'll end up. Relieved to be free from this self-centered family, I quickly departed. I later heard that the eldest son and Brian had become estranged. The new house had to be put up for sale quickly because it seemed difficult to afford just with Brian's income. Brian returned to his childhood home and seems to be living with his nearly 90-year-old mother. It must have been unexpected for his elderly mother to have her over 60 son move back in. While I do feel sympathy for her, our relationship was never good, so I felt somewhat vindicated. It seems that the eldest son and his wife have moved to Olivia's parents' home. I heard her parents likely believe in not interfering with other people or families. The eldest son and his wife might at last learn to become independent. Even if they come to me asking for help, I have no intention of helping. With the divorce, I'm enjoying living alone for the first time in a long while. I never thought that being free from taking care of others could be so comfortable. I even have time to pursue my hobbies. I think I should have divorced sooner, but from now on, I am determined to move forward without any regrets.